Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Area 312 Rock and Metal Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kent, along with my co-host,
Rex.
Friends, today we're welcoming someone who I've loved and appreciated his band since 1989 when I first heard them. I'm still appreciating them to this day. They've been on A&M Records, RCA Records, Enigma Records. They were the band that could back then. They were the band that did. And they were the band that are still kicking it. Please welcome with me Louis St. August of the band Mass. Welcome, Louis.
Hey guys, how are you? Nice to see you.
It's a privilege and an honor to have you, sir. And Louis, if I may just say, this album right here, Voices in the Night, as I mentioned, I did the math. And if I am not mistaken, in my vast collection of music, I have owned this album 4 times over, which is more than any other single album that I own. I first bought this on cassette back in '89, back when I had a mullet. I later upgraded to CD the following year. I had the 2012 initial remaster from Retroactive, and then I could not pass this up with Rob Caldwell from Bombworks remastering this, the gold edition, Voices in the Night. So needless to say, I love this album. I also want to say, Louis, that in 1990, that's when I made the switch from cassettes to CDs. Tied with Barren Cross, Louis, Voices in the Night. Barren Cross was also on Enigma, their State of Control album. This is the very first CD, along with State of Control by Barren Cross, that I ever purchased. So again, I love this album. It's a privilege to have you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And Louis, we always like to start at square one. And if I may, I'd like to ask, did you have music in the home growing up? Who were some of your musical influences?
Oh boy. Not really. My dad was an auto body. My mom was a worker. As a kid, I remember listening to the radio. And I loved Motown. I just loved the songs, Diana Ross and the Supremes and the Four Tops, the Spinners. So I was loved music right from the very beginning. And then whenever I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan show, I was like, I wanted to be a Beatle. I wanted to be the 5th member. So that's where my music, and that's when one of the first records that I purchased was Meet the Beatles, and I used to have my little drum set and play along to every song. And so that's where it all started for me, about 4 or 5 years old, just loving music and just knew that I would someday do something.
Sure. Big Beatles fan here too. Louis, I understand that you're also a drummer. Please tell me about, your drumming influences and how you got into drumming.
Sure. I mean, I just love the drums, and as a kid, I'd have little kits. Every year I'd get one for Christmas and something a little bit better. And for my parents, I was, blessed and that they would allow me to make noise in the house. And so I just love the drums, and I was a drummer for the first from 10 years old to about 15, 16 years old. And I was playing in a band, had a little band, and they said that I was also singing and playing the drums at the same time. So, and just decided to come up front. They were saying that I was a better singer than I was a drummer. So, but that's where it all began for me, was definitely banging on the drums.
Louis, the way I understand it, your childhood friend, Mass guitarist Gene Detria. Am I pronouncing Gene's name right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So Gene, your childhood friend, he was a drummer turned guitarist, and you were the drummer turned vocalist, and none of you are drummers now.
That's right.
How did all that come about? How did you guys decide who's going to do what in Mass?
Well, what happened was I was coming into the town, into Revere. We were just moving into this town called Revere, Massachusetts. And as I was coming down the street, he saw that I had a drum set. And he was wanted to play the drums. And I said, no, you're not going to play the drums. You're going to play the guitar, and we're going to start a band. And this is at age 10 years old. And we ended up stealing his confirmation money that he received, and we go down to the local music store and we buy an electric guitar. Now he doesn't know how to play, I don't know how to play. We buy an electric guitar, and then we had to save up money to buy an amp, and we both learned how to play, Smoke on the Water, 2564, easy songs. And that's how it all started. And then I was the drummer and he was the guitarist. We lived right across the street from each other, so every day we would get together and work on songs and write songs, and so he was my beginning guitarist from the get-go.
Louis, before Mass, you were in Axes. Was Axes the first band that you and Gene were in, and how did Axes form?
Gene was friendly with this bass player in school, and he invited him over. So it was me on the drums, Kevin on the bass, and Gene on guitar, and we were Axis, AXIS. And we learned about 20 songs, and we started doing some parties and anything that we could land us. Then we started getting invited to doing some school dances and stuff. And I would sing like 5 or 6 songs. The bass player would sing some songs. Gene would actually sing a couple of songs, and so that's how it all began.
What was the catalyst, Louis, then for Axes changing the name to Mass?
It was another band called John Butcher Axis, spelled AIS. So we thought we would change the name. We changed it briefly to AXES, and then that kind of fell by the wayside because we started getting into recording some demos, and we landed our first recording deal. And so we didn't know if we wanted to stay with the name Axis or if we wanted to change the name. So we were kind of like searching for some names. We actually recorded our very first record on A&M Records, not knowing what we were going to call the band.
So, Louis, did you come up with the name of Mass, or did you all kind of work on that, or was it someone else's idea in the band? How did the Mass name come about?
It's actually chosen by, not chosen, but it came up with our manager at the time, Hernando Courtwright. After we left, during the A&M days, he came up with a few names, and he brought up the name Mass, and we kind of like said, that sounds pretty cool, because, not because we're from Massachusetts, but we always felt that the band had a big sound. So that's kind of what the Mass means. And it was, kind of cool that, we're from Massachusetts, and then once we saw the logo, I loved it. So
yeah, it's an awesome logo too.
That was it for us.
Music composed to unite the masses and arranged to inspire the individual, right?
Yes.
The Mass motto.
That's right.
Louis, congratulations. Fighter, I did the math. I didn't realize this, but Fighter is now 40 years old. It's actually 41. Released and initially recorded, I should say, in 82. So from 82 to 2022, it's been 40 years, and that is unbelievable. And to put it into perspective for me, remembering 1982, that was the year that Quiet Riot released Mental Health. the time, what has it just flown by for you, my friend?
It has. It really has. I mean, I was 19 years old when I recorded that record. It was really our first time in a professional recording studio working with a producer, and we were just blown away. And it's just, it's amazing. Over 40 years old now, and still making music and still performing. So it's just been fantastic. Just blessed.
Louis, the producer for this was Tom Allen. He's I know that I wrote down he has done some work with Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Def Leppard, Kix, Crocus, Loverboy. Please tell us about your experience working with Tom for this album.
That's fantastic. Tom is a great guy. It's really strange. We had some, as every band goes through, some contract and management problems. The first manager that we had, for the Fighter record, actually for the A&M record, it was actually Tony Platt. The A&M Records flew in Tony Platt to record this record.
Okay.
He didn't get along with our manager, so he was let go. And then Tom Allen came in, and Tom was just fantastic to work with. I mean, when we were recording that record, Tom was also mixing one of the Judas Priest records, "Screaming for Vengeance."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing Another Thing Coming. He was mixing that song, and I said, "That's going to be a great song, a hit." And can you make a sound like that, And but he did his best. So, but he was totally different to work with, totally different producer. He would be he's kind of a guy where we would just plug in and kind of just play live, and very raw sounding record, and very, like I said, it was our first time in a professional studio, and he was just wonderful to work with. And we would go out after work and go to do barbecues, go out to dinners, because we were down there for a few months recording that record, doing some pre-production and recording that with him.
Now, you mentioned Louis, and we're not the kind, we don't look to dig up dirt or anything like that. But as the story goes, you guys were signed to A&M for this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
There was problems, as you alluded to, with former management. In doing my research, it roughly 2.5 years transpired after the recording of this album, and please correct me where I'm wrong. And then, this kind of, that 2.5 years, it kind of affected the relationship with A&M, because, legalese and all. And then if I understand correctly, the rights to this with you guys, it wasn't actually regained with Fighter until 2010. Is that information kind of correct? Or
Yes.
boy.
Yeah, it was crazy because he was driving the record company crazy, and A&M Records, and they kind of pulled us aside and said, "We're not going to release this record, guys, unless you get rid of this management." We flew back to Boston, and we hired some representation, flew out to New York City, and we tried to get off these contracts. Like when we were 18, 19, we signed we signed our life away, publishing, recording rights, everything. And we had to go to court took us a few years to get rid of the contracts. We finally had to file bankruptcy, Chapter 11, to get off these contracts. And by that time, 2 years have passed. A&M, they lost interest, and the album just sat on the shelf.
Do you love me? Do you want me by your side? Wanna hold me, girl? Wanna make me feel everything's right? Do you need me? Do you think that I'm the one? Gonna break my heart, gonna fall apart without you tonight.
Well,
Now-
we're glad to see it was released in 2010 finally. I mean, because I'm sure you were really wanting to see that get a release, all the hard work that you had done on that.
Right. Yeah, we were excited because, a lot of, it's great for the fans to see, the very beginning, what songs, some of those songs ended up on the next record, and see how we originally wrote them. It's like "Do You Love Me" was a little bit more laid back, more piano oriented, more slower. And And in the, it's just funny how things came about where Tony Platt came back into the picture to produce that record, New Birth. But in the meantime, before New Birth, we ended up doing an EP.
Louis, with all the troubles that happened, with the former management with Fighter, all was not lost, however, because this led to 84 Unchained, as it's come to be known as. It was an EP that you all released prior to 1985's New Birth. From my understanding, over 10,000 copies of Unchained sold locally. That's awesome. And then that led to RCA picking you guys up. So if you don't mind, Louis, just recount, the 84 Unchained, what led to that, and how many sold, and then RCA picking you guys up for New Birth.
It was that management. We signed with new management after we got rid of the old management. It was their idea to fly out to New York to we went out to the record plant in New York City to record that EP. We did it in a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We were done by Sunday night, and it was pressed, a few weeks later, and it just took off. Just the local radio stations here in Boston started playing it, and it just got attention to a lot of record labels. And we set up some showcases, RCA, Atlantic, I think Epic, and a few others came down and to see the band. We got some offers from Atlantic Records, and RCA gave us the best offer, so we went with RCA.
Louis, with 84 Unchained, another neat thing about that is you all made your initial recordings of Pedal to the Metal and Holy One, which I first, heard through Take You Home. So that's a really neat aspect of 84 Unchained. And then you guys, with your RCA release on New Birth, you guys were able to re-record a few songs. Voyager, Look for the Edge, the single Do You Love Me, Watch Her Walk, and Too Far Gone. And you mentioned, Louis, earlier, Motown being one of your influences, and I can actually pick some of that up in Do You Love Me. I think that's neat. Louis, Tony Platt, who famed engineer and producer, he has done work with AC/DC, Cheap Trick, Iron Maiden, Foreigner, Testament. I mention all that because it speaks of your pedigree as a band in mass. A great experience with Tony on this release, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Tony was another fantastic guy. He was just great to work with. He was a perfectionist, and I loved working with Tony as well. All the producers that we worked with, we were blessed and just very lucky. Tony came in, and we had all the songs written for this record, and I was so happy that we were able to take some of the songs from the Fighter record because it was sitting on the shelf, and we kind of updated them a little bit. He just came in and put his fingerprint on the songs. Maybe let's add another chorus here, let's speed up the tempo on this song, let's play the drum beat a little bit different here, and it was just great working with him. I was just so pleased the way New Birth came out.
Oh yeah. And this was Retroactive Records in 2011 re-released this, and so it was it's great to have that in the collection. So Louis, I'd like to ask you something, because the next album, and this is the second mass release that I ever owned, 88's Take You Home, and I first had it on cassette. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Holy One and Pedal to the Metal initially recorded for the 84 Unchained, and then they were re-released, or re-recorded, should I say, for this release?
It was actually the same tracks. I think we just might have just remixed some of those songs, Holy One, and the songs that ended up on there. We just felt that when we left RCA, the people who signed us at RCA, it seems like we've always had like a little cloud over us, with the management and the, the bankruptcy and the people who signed us from RCA left. So our management at the time said, well, they're offering us another record, but we feel that they're not going to promote the band. So they said that we should leave. So we took a buyout with RCA. And about a year later, we signed with, 2 years later, I forget what it was, we signed with Enigma. And so once we signed with Enigma, we had some demos, and they wanted to put something out right away. So that's what we did. So we put that, flew down to Jersey, added a couple of songs to that, remixed it, add some, we did some leads, and I did some backing vocals just to put this out to get us back into because it was like 87 or 88, I think 3 years later after the New Breath record. Yeah. And so that's what we did. So that was kind of done quickly. I think it took us about a week or so to put that all together. And we didn't even see the album cover until it was actually in the stores, which is kind of funny. And we kind of looked at each other. We were like, in Boston here, in East Boston, there's a big cross. It's called the Madonna. And we were like, boy, that looks like the Madonna in East Boston. And we kind of chuckled and just looked at it. And so, but that's how that record came about.
So, the irony, Lewis, regarding Mass, and I'd like to ask you a little more of a candid question, if I may. But, we're looking at the New Birth cover, and it's a beautiful cover. And we're looking at, Take You Home. And of course, you were talking about the cross and what it was exactly and is. Now, Lewis, as early as New Birth, I'm sorry, as early as 84 Unchained, there was the song Holy One. And I am not trying to make Mass out to be anything that it's not. But I'd like to just quote some lyrics, and I find these very refreshing. Holy One, you must follow sweet Jesus, for the path he has made will guide us to the eternal Son. Almighty God has won. And, so coming up more recently on 2018's When Two Worlds Collide, excellent album, by the way, the thanks in there. Thank you to the one and only God Almighty and his son, Jesus Christ, who makes all things possible. Lewis, I understand, Mass certainly is not a Christian band, a Christian rock band, but on a more candid and personal level, was there faith in your home while growing up? And if I may be so bold to ask, when did your journey with Christ begin?
From a very early age. I would go to church on Sundays faithfully. And so did the drummer too, Joey V. And I just always felt, God, big part of my life, and Jesus. So the band's not a Christian band, like per se. We always consider ourselves to be a melodic rock band. That and my lyrics are very positive and spiritual at times, and just personal things that have happened to me and things I want to express. I try to put my lyrics kind of hidden a little bit, and so people can kind of see the positive side. And that's my faith that I bring to the band.
Sure. And a variety of topics are written about in Mass's music, and like you said, I mean, it's there's boy meets girl, there's relationship, there's world outlook things. I remember Miles Away, about those who were leaving home, and I just want to say it's always been refreshing. Myself as a Christ follower, I've always just appreciated that, your stance, pro God, pro Christ. And I just want to thank you. It's been very refreshing to hear that material. The album that I was introduced to you guys on, 1989's Voices in the Night. I love this album. Picked it up when it was first released. This, along with a band called Mastodon, It's a Jungle Out There, Guardians, First Watch, and King's X, Out of the Silent Planet. This was the soundtrack to my summer of 1989.
Oh, wow.
Love this album. Louis, I'd just like to ask, I was also a Stryper fan. Had you known Michael Sweet prior to recording Voices, and how was he brought in as producer?
I didn't know Michael. I didn't really know Stryper. It was actually Gene, the guitarist, who was more familiar with them. We were ended up doing a few shows here, one in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I think one in Boston with them. And Gene developed a relationship, and we come to find out that I think Timmy had the New Birth record, so he knew of us, and we were just coming off the RCA deal. And we had some demos, and Michael listened to the song and watched our set, obviously. And he approached Enigma Records and said, "There's a band in Boston you guys have to sign." So that's how it led up. I guess Wes Hine, the owner of the Enigma Records, flew out to Boston a few weeks later and caught one of our shows. And after the show, he wanted to sign the band, and so that's how we signed with Enigma. And then Michael, approached Gene and said, "I'd love to produce one of your records too." And we were like, "Sure, why not?" So we put out the Take You Home. And then after that, we flew out to California to work with Michael on the Voices in the Night record, which was great. I mean, we didn't have a huge recording budget. And so Michael offered up us to stay at his home. So all four of us lived with Michael for like 2 months and drove him and his wife crazy, so, but no, they were so sweet. Kyle and so down to earth, so nice to us. And it was just a pleasure working with Michael, and he's just a funny guy. People don't know, but he's got a really unbelievable sense of humor. And we just had a ball recording this record.
So you say roughly about 2 months recording the album, correct, Louis?
Yes, it was something different for us because we were out there. Not only were we recording the record, but we were doing some promotion things for the radio station things, and stuff for the label, and it was different because Michael liked to work differently. He'd like to record the drums in one studio, the guitars in another studio, so we'd pack up and then do the vocals in another studio. So it was kind of funny how it all kind of blended together. And like I said, it was just a great experience, and to be in all these different studios and to work with different people like Michael.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Louis, a different type of a question. The, I guess I should say cover model on the front. Do you recall that cover model, who it is?
No, I do not. It was, their art department came up with it. And when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't know if I really cared for it too much.
Mm-hmm.
But but learned to love it now.
Sure.
But going back since we're talking about cover albums, that very New Birth album, that was actually the photographer Dan. That was actually his wife. And the New Birth, he did that with some sort of clay, and I just was so impressed with how he made that record cover, where like the New Birth or the Voices in the Night is just like a picture of something, Sure. But we didn't really have any thing to do with the album cover. We saw, I think, a few, and I think the guys decided that one, so I was fine with it.
Well, the reason why I was asking about Voices is because there was a young lady that the same year that this was released, I had met a young lady, and she was actually a dead ringer for the cover model on the front. And then 12 years later, I married her. So,
oh boy,
pretty interesting. My wife, she's the spitting image of my wife back in 1989. So anyway, lucky me, I overmarried.
Hey, it's you're a dream that's coming true. I just need you here.
let me ask you, Kevin Vario, who played bass on Voices, in 1992, from my understanding, Michael Palumbo joined the band on bass. Kevin had left. I'm just curious, do you all still have a connection with Kevin at all?
We do. We're still great friends with Kevin. Kevin comes to the shows, and sometimes if he's in the audience, we pull him up and, he'll sing along or, with us, and he cheers us on, So I was just texting him the other day. So we need to get together. We're getting together for some dinners, and I'm having him sign some CDs too. And but yeah, it's just, he left the band. We were at that stage where we were just didn't have a record label. Things were changing. Grunge was coming in. He was going through some situations with his family, and he moved out and kind of moved far away from us. And so we just thought that it was time to move on with Kev.
Well, I just think it's nice that, when you hear the reason, it's pleasing when you know that band members are still friends and it's all still good. So that blesses me to know that. And so now, from 89's Voices until this album, 2007's Crack of Dawn. I was so pleased to see this, because almost a 20-year absence, Lewis. Where was Mass at during the 90s? Did you guys break up or take a break, or
we just
going on?
Yeah, we just kind of took a break. We never really did break up. We would just get together sporadically and work on tunes. We were thinking about changing the name. We changed the name for like a few months and recording some demos. We thought maybe we would change the style of music a little bit. It's a little bit more funky and a little bit more bluesy. And it wasn't until we went down to New Jersey to work with John Rollo to record the demos for that record, Crack of Dawn, that he said, "Why you guys changing the name? Because you guys are known as Mass."
Mm-hmm.
And then, it just made sense. And so we just decided, let's go back to the name Mass. And so that's what we did. I mean, well, during that time, people got married. Some of the band members were having children. So there was a lot going on, even though no music was out by Mass.
So were you doing any kind of concerts or anything like between those two albums, Lewis, or not?
We were doing a few shows here and there, locally on the East Coast, just not too much, and just recording some demos down our rehearsal studio, and just trying to figure it out, just waiting for something to break. And that's when I decided to, after we did the demos, to shop some of those demos to some of the European labels.
Okay.
And that's how we came up with signed with I think we had 2 or 3 offers, and then we ended up going with the Khalil from Escape Music.
What I appreciate about Crack of Dawn, of course, now what was it, 2007, I believe it was initially released.
Yes.
The 90s were all about grunge, and boy, I sure did miss, Mass and all of the bands, in your all's wheelhouse. And do you think, Lewis, that, I mean, I didn't miss much in the 90s. I'm not a fan of grunge. Do you think you guys, what I was going to say, what I appreciate about this, it's you can tell that the band had become a bit more modern, but you still stay true to form and in your wheelhouse. And do you think if you guys were releasing material in the 90s, about the mid 90s and onward, would you guys have been tempted to do grunge or anything?
I don't think so. I just don't think that we had that, in our hearts. We kind of play music from within, from what we feel. And that's why it just didn't feel right doing some of those bluesy songs and some of those, like I said, we were working on some of those demos or changing the name. It just didn't feel right. And that's, we just went back to our roots.
So tell me, Michael Palumbo, he joined up on bass in 92. We first got to hear Michael with this great release. Aside from additional keyboards, which we'll get to in a bit, has Michael been the only member transition in the 40 plus years of the band? And how did Michael come into the fold?
Pretty much. We kind of did auditions for bass players. We had quite a few people come in and audition for the band, which we were impressed because they knew the songs and everything. And, and Mike came in and just blew us away. We just said, we knew, he was the perfect fit for us. And he's actually been in the band longer than our original bass player, Kevin. So, and Michael's a great bass player and a great songwriter too. So it's just and he's great, just an asset to have him.
Well, then let's talk about the band's secret weapon, Jeremy Husey. He's come on keys since Crack of Dawn.
Yep.
And then how did the band garner Jeremy into the fold? And I think, Jeremy, he brings body and dimension, and not to mention, at times, Lewis, I get a wonderful, what I call a purple vibe, AKA John Lord. Jeremy brings some great added dimension and depth into the band. Tell us about acquiring Jeremy.
I remember the time when you would walk with me forever. I was lost in my way, and now I see it getting better. I see it, I feel it coming back. I see it, I feel it coming back again.
So, Jeremy, just a great keyboard player. After we finished recording the tracks for the Crack of Dawn album in New Jersey, we came back to Boston, and I thought that the band, some of the songs needed a little bit more flavor and some keyboards. So Jeremy was playing in a local band called Fortune, and always loved his playing. So invited him down to listen to the songs and put his take. And once he did that, we just we never went back. We just loved the way the band sounded with the keyboard player. We've always been a 4-piece, and so he just really just makes that sound even more massive, if it could be, But he's just been a great addition, and he's been on the rest of the records that we've done so far.
And so Mass's next release was 2010 Sea of Black, a great album. Lewis, this is interlaced. I noticed there's a little different flavoring peppered within this release, because there are several, like 3 or 4 acoustic-based rockers and ballads, such as All the Years Gone, Coming Home, and More Than a Friend. So this brings an overall different nuance into the Mass arena. Was the acoustic-driven material, was it something that organically started to appear within your song selections for this album, or is it something that you guys purposely set out to do to bring that flavor into Sea of Black?
Yes, absolutely. We decided to, bring more acoustic into this record, and this record was a lot of fun recording because, like Crack of Dawn, we did 6-7 songs in New Jersey, and then we recorded a couple of songs here at Mixed Emotions, It's You and Empty Soul. So when we started doing Sea of Black, this was straight right from one studio, from how many tracks on there. We did everything right there, which made the album seem really a flow. I wanted to incorporate more acoustic into some of these songs, so it's just kind of worked out, and I just love the way some of the songs flowed, and using the acoustic. And the Mass has always been sort of very versatile. I mean, we could do a ballad, we can do a rocker, we can do a mid-tempo, or so I just thought that we have a variety of different styles, and I just love when we do something a little bit different.
Well, and speaking of rockers, even my wife enjoys it. The song Through the Rain on that album, that's an incredible song, Lewis. We both love that. That is an awesome song on that album. Thank you.
I think Michael come up with that riff, that guitar, that bass riff. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Thank you.
So Lewis, it's already been 5 years since 2018's excellent, I might add, When Two Worlds Collide, and many are touting this as one of the band's best, with its full-bodied production and hook-laden songs. Songs such as the title track, Falling in Love, Some Time Ago, and Secondhand Rose. Those especially make me tend to agree with what most are saying about this. So Lewis, when does the band say, okay, it's time to make a new record?
But this record here, I was pushing the band. I'm always pushing the band. Let's go record. But I just feel like we've become better musicians, better songwriters. And I just love this record too. I think it's a great record. And I started pushing this. It came out, we started probably working in 2017, 2016, started coming up with some of the songs for it. I come up with the title, and we just started working on the lyrics, and then once we felt that we had it all together, that's when we recorded it. And it's just fantastic. We got Brian Anthony to mix and master it, and he did a fabulous job.
You know, with Two Worlds Collide, Lewis, I mean, it's not a return to form, because you all have remained, thankfully, for the most part, in your wheelhouse, but it's just radio ready rockers and a few ballads on here, and very palatable, and very akin to Voices in the Night with modern production. And what I want to ask Lewis is, am I hearing inklings, I think, around the horn a little bit? I'm either seeing talk or hearing inklings of a new recording in the not too distant future. Is there any truth to that?
I hope so. I've been working on the guys, telling them we get it. Let's do a new record. Let's do a new record. So we've have about 4 or 5 songs that we've been working on. So we need about maybe 10 or 12 more, and then we'll choose, the best 10. So I'm really hoping that we can record something this year and hopefully release it next year, 2024. So we're a band that works very, very slow. It's just I don't know, because we're getting older now, but everybody has more responsibilities. The bass player, Michael, he's a vice president for a company. So every 2 weeks he's flying out to Korea, California. And, and everybody has, their families. And so we just try to get together. And when we do, we'll write a song, we can bang out a song, and then we'll really like the song. Then the next time we get together, people are like, oh, I don't really care for that song anymore. So it kind of drives me crazy, but we have a lot of songs that we threw away that are probably pretty good. So, I'm hoping that we can finally get into the studio sometime, maybe later this year, and record some basic tracks and get something new for the following year.
Well,
And
here's
what-
the hoping for that.
And what about any, I know you just said the guys are all busy, so I probably know the answer to this question already, but what about any kind of even little mini tours or anything for 2023 at all, Lewis, to get out and play at all, or not?
Yeah, we try to do a few shows here and there when the offers come in. It's just so hard, with us being, full-time dads and families. It's just so hard for us to it's not like we're 18, 19. We can all just jump in a van and,
And go, yeah.
state. It's not ideal for us right now. But you never know. Somebody will come along and say, we'll give you this amount of money and let's go on the road, and maybe the guys will all agree. So cool.
I just ordered your new Birth CD. This is something I think is really awesome for you guys as a band, for your fans. You can actually get autographed copies at no additional charge. And I just really want to mention that to our listeners out there, that if they want anything like that, you know, it doesn't cost any more at all to get them autographed. And I just want to thank you to doing that for the fans, Louis.
Oh, you're very welcome. I always felt like, you know, I would never accept money for an autograph. I mean, I'm just pleased that you like our music and that you appreciate our music. That's how, I mean, we're not rich. We never became rich from doing this. We just do it because we love music. We have passion. I mean, what brings me, you know, high is when I get letters or emails from fans saying that this song is my wedding song, or this song was present during the birth of my child, or something special, a special occasion that happened in their lives, and that our music touched them, and or they got off drugs, or they stopped drinking, or something like that, or they started believing in, you know, being more positive in life, and that's what impresses me, or that's what makes me feel great.
Awesome. And if you could tell us the band's website address, Louis.
Sure. It's massrocks.com. MASSROCKS.com.
I thought that's what it was, but I just wanted to be sure. So fans, check out their website and you will not be disappointed.
That's right. So Louis, really quick, you mentioned, you know, needing to cull in order to make a new recording, to cull some more songs. Just out of curiosity, does the band have recordings, studio recordings that have not been released on any albums?
I'm sure there's a few, you know, around somewhere. I may have some demo tapes and stuff that, you know, we didn't think it was going to make the record, but not too many, because usually when we go in and record, we know what 10 or 11 songs we're going to record, and we do those. If we do like a Christmas song, we may throw a Christmas song because we know put that out later or something, or just for fun. So, but no, I mean, right now some of the new songs that we have, I have a little recorder that I have down in rehearsal that I just click on so I can kind of listen to them, you know, the songs, and try to come up with some melodies and lyrics for. So that's the way we do it. As far as writing the songs, we all contribute. I mean, I'll come down with the melody, or, you know, or Mike or Gene will have a riff, and we'll just build off that. Mike will come down with a riff, and we'll just start building. Gene will have a riff or a chorus or something, and then Joey adds, you know, his ideas too. So it's really a collaboration of all of us. And now with Jeremy, we have, you know, he has ideas too, and so it's just been fantastic.
Falling in love again. I'm falling in love again. Here I go once again. Don't want this dream to ever end.
Do you do most of the lyrics then, though, or not?
I do 99% of the lyrics, and
Okay.
most of the songs are pretty much autobiographical, you know, stuff that's happened in my life, you know, a new birth, a new child. It's just a divorce, a chance to love. Joey went through a divorce, a secondhand rose, a kind of, and then most of them are stories that I've dreamt of, or this happened to the band, you know, getting taken from a manager, having him steal, you know, $100,000 from us, you know, a bad man's reputation, girlfriend, boyfriend relationships type of things, things that happened in the band's life and in my life. I kind of come up with those melodies and those kind of lyrics. So,
Okay.
Louis, you mentioned Secondhand Rose, and of course, of course, I did not know the story behind it, but a wonderful song among many on this album. But that prompts me to ask this final question for me. You haven't lost your chops at all as a vocalist. I mean, you're hitting those notes. You're what am I trying to say? You know, blaring it out. You just still have your chops. what's your regimen? What's your secret for being able to still deliver the goods vocally?
Thank you. Just living a pretty good life, you know. Maybe it's the Italian pasta that I eat. I don't know. I've just been, you know, pretty blessed, as you know, just lucky, I guess. I hear some of the band singers that are out nowadays and that have been around back in the 80s. And I don't know if it's because they're constantly touring and we don't tour that much. So maybe that's it too. So, but just been blessed. That's all I can say. I thank God.
Yes, sir. So, Rex, did you have any other questions pertaining to the Mass history?
No, I don't think so, Kent. I do want to thank Lewis again for putting up with our technical difficulties, and you're just such an awesome guy. Thank you.
So, friends,
Well,
if you notice, and I've done my best to edit, but we're having some technical difficulties, but we'll try to push through that. So, Lewis, just want to thank you. You've been a part of my life since 1989. It's always been a treasure to, you know, to hear you're in the band's body of work. It's also been a blessing to me. I love your output and your songs about life. One of the things that has especially blessed me among your variety of topics, you know, covering life, is, you know, myself as a Christ follower, I've always appreciated the fact that you've always chosen to honor the Lord and his Savior, the Lord Jesus, in your lyrics. So thank you for that. All to say is that, you know, we strive to serve the Lord through this program, and we always like to lead with a little, we call it a message from home, a little verse of scripture. So Rex is going to close us out with a message from home. And if you don't mind, Lewis, please stick around for one more moment. And thank you for the privilege of getting to speak with you today.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. God bless.
Yes, sir.
Secondhand rose, thrown by the wayside, like the way that you left me, and you reap what you sow. Everyone knows love's like a garden, plant a seed of a stone, and you reap what you sow.
Lewis, the verse I've selected for today is based on a song from your seminal album, Voices in the Night, and the song is Reach for the Sky. And there's a part of the song with the lyrics that says, well, the chorus is, cry out, children, cry out, reach for the sky, shine out, children, shine out, lift your heads high. And then the next verse starts out with, what's he done now? Oh, I can see the light. There's hope for us all if we reach for the sky. And that reminds me of an Old Testament scripture, 2 Samuel chapter 22, verses 6 and 7, that say, the cords of the grave coiled around me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called to the Lord. I called out to my God. From his temple, he heard my voice. My cry came to his ears. And I just think kind of that goes hand in hand with that song, and that we always have to remember that when we cry out to God, he does hear us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amen. Amen. So,
Amen.
Lewis, thank you so much for blessing us. It's been a privilege.
Yes, thank you.
Guys, thanks, guys.
See the cross in the sky. Oh, it's come for you and I. Time for us to choose a side. Now we must all decide.
Now, how did you and Gene initially meet, Lewis?
That's how we met. Came down the street in a pickup truck with a drum set, and he come running across the street saying, wow, drums. I want to play the drums. And
Yeah.
that's like, that I told, so, well, there can only be one drummer. So
And
You
with
better-
Gene's confirmation money, they've been doing the Lord's work ever since. Put it
that's
together.
right. That's